Hey guys, Super RetroTink here. I just received this new item in the mail. This is the RetroTink 2X from retrogamingcables.uk, I believe, or .co.uk. This actually came to me from Europe, and I'm not sure if it's Europe or the United Kingdom, but they're located in another country. And I just received this, and what this is if you've ever heard of the RetroTink 2X or the open source scan converter or the FrameMeister, this is another scaler that what it does is it takes Super Nintendo multi-out or a Nintendo multi-out, and it'll take the 240p signal out of your game console and it'll convert it to mini HDMI to work with modern flat screen TVs. And what's cool about it is the way that it integer scales. It'll take like a 240p signal out of these consoles and it'll double it to 480p. And since all it's doing is doubling the picture and not doing a whole lot of processing or anything, it's virtually lag free. It's definitely so minuscule as far as the amount of lag that it has that a human could never sense it or could never feel it. So as soon as these went up for pre-order, I ordered one just because I think it's cool and I have quite a few systems that could benefit from it. I ordered this Nintendo multi-out version. I ordered the PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2 version, and the Genesis Model 2 version. The PlayStation 1 and the Nintendo one have shown up, and I thought I'd do this video on the Nintendo one because I have a lot of different use cases that we can test it with, because I know a lot of people are probably thinking about ordering one of these, but they want to make sure it works with their system. So I thought I'd make this video to kind of demonstrate how well it works. So all of these systems that I have in front of me, I have a Nintendo 64 that has Tim Worthington's RGB mod. I have a front-loading SNES that has Nintendo 64 RGB mod in it. I believe it's also a Tim Worthington. And then I have a stock one-chip SNES that I recapped and did like the C11 ghosting fix. And then I have a SNES Junior that I installed Voltar's RGB amp in, and then I recapped it and did the C11 ghosting fix, but I didn't hook up S-Video in this one. So I thought what would be kind of interesting about all of these is all of these work with HD Retrovision's Nintendo multi-out or HD Retrovision Super Nintendo cables. So all four of these systems work with the Nintendo style multi-out to RGB over component. So theoretically, I would think that all of these systems would work with this RetroTink 2X. I mean with the RAD2X. That's its proper name. So on their website, they say that Nintendo 64 RGB works, SNES RGB, and it says that AV Famicom RGB works. And I'm not sure if they just didn't list the US version of the regular Nintendo, if it's been modded for RGB, or if it won't work. And another kind of cool thing about this is this will, if it detects RGB, the light will go, I believe, purple to indicate that it's RGB. If the best it detects is like S-Video, then it'll output S-Video. And I think if the best it detects is composite, it'll even line double composite and output it. So another reason I kind of want to do this video is, for some reason, I think I've received it pretty early, because when I go online, yesterday there wasn't a single, other than Retro RGB's early brief videos about it. There wasn't anything like real in depth on it in American. A lot of it was in other languages. Today there was one good video about the Genesis cable in English, but that was kind of curious because I don't have my Genesis cable yet, but he had one. I don't know if it was, he kind of made it seem like maybe it was a review copy. This one I actually purchased with my own money. And another thing it has on here is it has this smoothing switch that you can turn on and off. And on these 2D consoles, like the regular Nintendo and the Super Nintendo, it's going to be absolutely worthless. On the Nintendo 64, it might be cool. That'll be something to experiment with. A negative that I already see about this is I don't really like this mini HDMI, but it's not a huge deal. I already had the cable. But if you're buying one, like I didn't know that it was coming with mini HDMI. So if you're buying one, make sure you've got a mini HDMI cable. And I saw today on the, I kind of was looking this up a little bit before I made this video, and they are selling the mini HDMI cables on the same page that they're selling the RAD2X. So if you don't have one of those cables, make sure you pick one up. So I thought I'd just kind of jump in and hook up the different consoles and see how they work. I don't have a real thorough way of testing lag through this device, so I'm just kind of going to play some games that I'm pretty familiar with. And I've already set up the TV in game mode and done all that jazz. So I'm just going to fire up. I'm going to start with the Nintendo 64. This will probably be the hardest one for me to tell if there's any lag, but I'll be able to tell how the picture is, and I'll be able to kind of mess with that smoothing. And I have another Nintendo 64 that has RetroFix's RGB mod, but I didn't want to pull it out of storage, and I figured that one's probably pretty likely to work. Because one of the reasons I want to make this video is that you guys know, what setups will work for sure. So right now, this is the Nintendo 64 RGB board by Tim Worthington with Bordy's firmware on it. And I can see that the RAD2X is turned like a pink color. So that means it's in RGB mode. So I'm just going to fire up Diddy Kong Racing, because that's one I'm pretty familiar with. And I've picked some kind of interesting games for some of these, just to kind of experiment a little bit. Like Top Gear for Super Nintendo, I really want to try because I know an issue that I have with it with the OSSC, and I want to see if this does the same thing. I'm just going to try to get into a race. I mean, it looks pretty good. The 64 never looks that great. I've had an Ultra HDMI in the past too, and I was never real impressed with that, to be honest with you. So I kind of went back to RGB modding. And this specific one can do the vid to blur. I'm going to pause it for a second, and I'm going to turn that smoothing on, see what that looks like. See if I can even tell. There, I did it. Let's see here, I'm going to try turning it back off. You know, I definitely think the 64 is looking better with it on. Just doesn't look as harsh. This actually looks pretty awesome. I mean, it doesn't look amazing because it's a 64, but it looks pretty good. So, my 64 with Tim Worthington's Nintendo 64 RGB board and Boardy's firmware works. So that's the first one. Now this is one I was really wondering about, and this was a big part of why I did this video, because they don't officially support this, support the NES with RGB, at least from what I could tell. And this specific mod, I didn't do this mod. I didn't do the RGB mod in this NES because I don't know enough about it. But I requested that the person who sold it to me set it up for the HD Retrovision cable. So I would assume if it works for the HD Retrovision cables, it works with the RAD2X. And I can see it turned purple. I want to make sure that I've got the smoothing off. Yep. So now I turn the smoothing off because it's going to do nothing but screw up a 2D picture. And I'm just going to play good old Super Mario Brothers because I'm very familiar with it and I feel like I would feel lag. But so far it works on my RGB modded NES. So right now it's 2 for 2. So let's see, I'm just going to try to kind of blast through the level. Oh, I should have picked up the fire pellets. Ooh, that was my bad. Okay, so I'm not detecting any lag. The picture looks great. There's no like inconsistencies or like noise on the screen. See, I'm gonna hit info, so it believes it's receiving 720 by 480 progressive. So that seems right. You know, what's kind of cool about this thing is it allows you to take all these analog systems that, if you're like me, you have them for like hooking up to CRTs and stuff. That's why you have an HDMI modded them. And it allows you to kind of take them and do, have them in both sort of situations. You could stick this in your living room and hook it directly up to your flat panel. And then if you wanted, you could take it and hook it up to your CRT in another room. And you don't have to really pick one or the other. It's a real good middle ground for going either way. There we go. So that's what's kind of cool about this, is you can have one system that can do both without, if you don't want to mess with an OSSC every time you turn on a system, or and mess with settings and this and that. And the thing is, I haven't said this, but the RAD2X itself, it is built very well. Like they have this thing called like their Pack-a-Punch cabling that's supposed to be like very resilient to being like bent around and stuff. And you can tell that it really is built to last. I wonder though, I am noticing that my TV is going from like being really bright to being really dark. I wonder if I have like the eco sensor going or something. I put it in game mode and stuff, but Maybe that's just how the levels are. Because now it's not doing it when I'm in a level. Yeah, maybe I'm just... Oop. Oh. Okay, so I'm going to say it passes with the regular Nintendo. So now we're going to try the Super Nintendos. So let me plug it in here. And I'm going to have to go and plug in this power brick. Okay, so this Super Nintendo is a stock one chip Super Nintendo. And it just turned pink. So it's detecting RGB. Let's hit info again. Still getting a 720 by 480. And I'm just going to check real quick if that eco mode is on. Okay, ego's off, so I must be crazy. So this is a game I'm very familiar with. So I'd probably detect any lag here. And I know what it should look like. I mean, it looks very good. Ooh. 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 It's okay, Diddy's a faster climber anyway. Oops. Okay. So it works with a stock SNES 1 chip. So now I'm going to try the SNES Junior with Voltar's RGB mod. And what's interesting about this one is I'm going to play Top Gear. So first let's see if it does RGB. Okay, so it detected RGB. And what's interesting about this one is when you use the pits in this game, I think it changes resolution, because when I use the OSSC it kind of blanks out for a second. So I'm just going to play until I do a race where I have to use the pits. I'm just going to play until I have a race where I have to use the pits, and then we're going to see what it does for the resolution. Or we're going to see if it blanks out like the OSSC does. But this tells me that it works with Voltar's RGB amp. So far, it's worked with all 4 systems that I've thrown at it. So I'm sure there's other systems, like the GameCube is a system that you could use this with, but there's a lot better solutions. Like if you're looking to play GameCube, you want to get one that'll... Let's see, I'm just going to pause it real quick and turn it down a little bit. If you're wanting to play GameCube, you want to get one with a digital port and buy like a Rgb from Insurrection Industries, because that's going to be an all digital solution. So I don't really see it as being that relevant with a GameCube, unless you have a GameCube that doesn't have a digital port and you don't want to buy another one, or if you're not a big fan of the GameCube and you just want to use it as like a happy circumstance. But I don't know if the GameCube outputs RGB natively, so you'd probably be doing S-video with this on a GameCube. But I don't know, maybe that would be good enough for you. For me, it's kind of irrelevant, so I'm not going to mess with it. But so far it's worked on all 4 of these systems, and it looks good, you know. You know, another question is if you want simulated scan lines. You know, that's something that you can do with an OSSC that you can't do with this. And for the most part, on flat screens I don't like to introduce artificial scan lines typically, so I don't really see that as a negative of this. And I should say that this device is about $50. It might be more like $60 after it's shipped. I don't really remember. I ordered it a while ago. But that's actually a pretty good price since you can use it across so many consoles. Ooh. Yeah, and this TV that I'm using is a 43-inch Samsung, and it's actually one that HD Retrovision recommends for how well it handles 240p over component. It has like, I think I measured it with, I can't remember what it's called, Dan Kuntz's leg tester. I measured the component leg at like less than 2 frames. So that's pretty good for a flat screen. I'm just going to turn up the music a little bit. The music in this game is awesome. I'm not sure how many races you have to do before there's a pit. You know what else I'd be kind of curious about? I wonder if you could take this and send it into a 10 DAC. A 10 DAC is like a HDMI to VGA adapter. I wonder if you could hook this up to a 10 DAC and then input this signal into a VGA computer monitor. I might have to give that a try because I have all those things. But that could be another solution for people looking to repurpose a high-end computer monitor. Like I've got this ViewSonic graphics series, like a 20-inch computer monitor, and I use that with the OSSC. So I wonder if I could hook this up instead of using an OSSC. The only thing that the big advantage of an OSSC over this is you can do a lot of fine tuning with an OSSC, but at the same time this kind of wins out as far as simplicity. And I know like the PlayStation version of the RAD2X requires USB power because it can't draw enough power off of the AV port on the PlayStation 1 and the PlayStation 2. But this cable for the Nintendo systems is really awesome in that it doesn't require any sort of external power. So that makes it really, really convenient and seamless to use. This one's 6 laps, so there might be a pit in this one. I think there is. So I'm gonna try to go into a pit stop and see what the video does. Because I know with the OSSC and the HD Retrovision cables, it'll just blank out. Oh, and I missed it. I guess I'm doing another lap. And I used to have a RetroTink 2X, but I don't know that I ever tried it. And I don't have one anymore. The RetroTink 2X is a pretty good device. It just seemed kind of redundant for me. And now that I have these, it definitely is. Oh, so I didn't lose signal. So it must be able to handle whatever it does there. Huh. So that's another plus for the RAD2X. Yeah, and I don't feel any lag. Everything looks great. Let's see if I can win this race even though I took a dumb pit stop. And I'm out of nitros now. Okay, well, so I'll just stop it there. So I would say if you have a SNES Junior with Voltar's mod, RGB amp, you're good to go. If you've got a stock one-chip SNES, you're good to go. If you've got a regular Nintendo with RGB mod for HD Retrovision cables, you're good to go. If you've got a Nintendo 64 RGB modded, you're good to go. So far from the testing I can tell, this RAD2X works perfectly. does everything it's supposed to do. So I'd highly recommend it, and I hope this video helps you in determining whether or not this is worth the money for your setup. So this is Super Retrocade, and thanks for watching.